So I want to welcome everyone to the financial modeling tutorial. So we're now in week number 4. I guess we've met Keith 4 times. Now, quite a few things I want to update you on today, which are interesting and important. So let me go through that. So I guess we're nearly halfway through to the last term of your stay here. So today, if possible, I want to talk a bit about your projects a little bit. So Keith will also say something on Saturday. Have you guys had a chance to look at the project? Do you understand what? All right, that's what I'm here for. So I want to pick up from where we left off last time, actually regarding the martingale measure. So we'll talk a bit about that, and then I want to talk about the projects. And if we have time today, I want to share with you just some thoughts about barrier options. You see that, the angle that I take is quite different from Keith. To be honest with you, his math is much better than me. In fact, he's the most quantity guy that I work with in this program, and you are probably doing the most quantity course. But what I do want to share, what I do want to bring to the table in these tutorials often is a different angle and understanding complex concepts in a far more intuitive way, so that you actually can retain it in your memory and maybe explain it to people who understand less than you do. Okay, so that's kind of my aspiration. So just by way of housekeeping, you have a homework that is due at the end of today, and there is another just solving those assignment problems. Now, can you please upload it to just do a scan copy, just scan it. So first of all, you handwrite it, please. So you don't need to type it up, because those algebraic symbols are very hard to type up. So handwrite it, scan it, and then just upload it. You can keep the physical copy for yourself for revision purposes. And that one is actually due this evening. So today is April the 12th, 2019, Friday. And so we are here, as you can see. And so you're going to meet with Keith tomorrow. I'm afraid I won't be with you tomorrow, so I'm not going to. So don't be surprised when you see that I'm not there. Okay? And then next time we meet for tutorial purposes will be 2 weeks, or 2 weeks and 1 day. So we're going to take a little break for Easter, and so is Keith. So after tomorrow, so 13 plus 14 is 27. So the next Saturday, which is Easter, what do they call that, Easter Day, you don't have to be here, okay? And then that's about it. Otherwise, the schedule for this course is fairly regular. I do want to just say one thing, which is that I have uploaded some material for your assignment not assignment, for the project. So you already know the assignments. Excuse me. The next one is due next Friday, April 19. So all the specs, all the specifications are there. What I do want to mention is that there is a group project. So these I also posted. Now I want to actually add one more thing. So I'm going to do that now. And that is, I'm going to add one more attachment. This one, and I'll show you what that is in a moment. Okay. The tutorial file for this morning is on Blackboard. Now, so this group project, so there are now 17 of you. So you're in groups of 4, and 5, I think. So please listen carefully. So you have a choice. Hold on a second. You don't need to know these as venues. So you have a choice of either doing structured solution 1, structured solution 1, or structured solution 2, or you can do, it's sometimes called algo trading or systematic trading. You can do an algo trading study. Now, first thing, so there are 4 teams. We let you choose what you want to work on. So even if 2 teams work on the same thing, we're okay with that. We hope you will spread out, but you don't, in other words, you don't have to care what somebody else is working on, okay? I just hope you don't all end up working on the same thing, okay? It becomes like a cartel, you know, oligarchy. We would love to see variety if possible, but when do you have to decide? Well, we haven't actually set a date, but you know what? Good question. I think in your interest, you should decide quickly, because if you can't decide like 1 week before the presentation, that won't work for you. It works for us, okay? I think it's more like you decide early, and if you have hesitations or concerns, you let us know. I think that's more important. Now, I will go through today just quickly the structured solutions 1 and 2, and also algo trading. Algo trading, Keith is going to say something to you on that tomorrow. He said he would. And I just uploaded something just now, you saw it, called performance value evaluation. That document actually is relevant to the algo trading study. And I'll open it now. So I think here it just contains some guidelines on what he would like you to do for that. So systematic strategy, performance evaluation, and discussion. So feel free to go home and have a look at this. Okay, performance. These are performance metrics. Okay, I think you know most of these. Strategy design, quantitative or algorithmic. He will talk about this, and I'm going to let him do that first. And if there is something to add, I will do so later on. This is actually something I have a good personal interest in. Just by the way, I sometimes trade using simple algorithmic strategies, and So if you go online, you go to Google, you just type the word systematic trading or algorithmic strategy, you're going to find like 3 million examples within half a second. The question is, as I said to you before, remember Sturgeon's law? I think it was Sturgeon. 90% of everything is crap, right? So just beware that don't take everything so seriously. So that's on algo trading. It's worth looking into, and I'll let Keith talk about that first. Okay. What I do want to start off with today is just a quick look at last week's tutorial. Now, we were discussing change of measure and Kirchhoff's theorem, as you might recall. So last week we talked about the Markov process and how it is related to but different from the martingale process. This is sometimes a question that is asked in job interviews. And like I have said many times, when you go for a derivative sales or a trading interview, somebody throws a question like that at you. Do you understand the difference between a Markov process and a martingale? Actually, they kind of expect you can't answer. But guess what? If you can, what does that mean? That means you are above their expectation. That's what that means. Yeah. So that was last time, and we talked about the Riemann integral. And I said I want to talk a bit about the change of measure and Kirchhoff's theorem. Now, you may know this already very well, you may not, but whether you know it or not, my aim is to try and cover this topic from a different angle. And I think you would find it quite interesting, my treatment of it. So we already went through this. We don't need to do this anymore. All the job offers that was in the United States, by the way. So all the new buy or sell side analyst jobs require Python. So we went through this. I'm not going to do that now. We went through this as well. Today I want to talk about martingale. Now, as I said to you, so you know the standard definition of martingale, but the point is, if you can model a stochastic process or a random variable as a true martingale, no drift, totally random, there is a very rich area in finance which will allow you to model these processes with a lot more efficiency, and is a lot easier to do so. The problem is, most things in finance are not true martingales. There is a drift, so it complicates things. So stocks have a drift. They should. There's a drift upwards. If there is no drift, you wouldn't buy it. Just like coin tosses have no drift, so you're not interested. And when there's a drift, so it's good news if you're an investor, but if you're a quant, the drift kind of gets in the way, and it doesn't allow you to model these processes with what they call it really is called the martingale method in finance, but that requires something to be a martingale. And so we went through that, and I said to you that one way to do this, when something is a sub-martingale, in other words, it is a martingale, but it's a martingale along a trend. One way to do it is to detrend that. In other words, pretend that this term is not even there and try to get rid of it somehow. Now, that's the clumsy way to do it. There is kind of a more elegant way to do so, and that is what is called 's change of measure, or Kirchhoff's theorem, which is to do with changing the measure or changing the probability distribution, and I'm gonna share that with you today. So in derivative pricing, we try to change from a random process with a drift, one drift with a drift, to another one where there is no drift. And like I said here, if an alpha has no drift and it only grows at the risk-free rate, which is 0 for so long. So really it's almost a pure market risk. So the probability measure would be the one in the risk-free world. That has to be the case. And the way you do that is, now I'm going to, the first time I saw the Gersdorff's theorem, it kind of reminded me of Superman. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. And this may help you remember. Okay? I hope at least it doesn't confuse you. Now, how does Superman tackle problems in the world? So normally Superman is just a normal guy with normal problems, everyday personal problems. So he's just a guy like you and me. Okay, this is Superman. And when there are some situations that he needs to deal with, have you seen, you've all seen Superman, right? So he goes into a telephone box and he changes into Superman. He comes out and he fights the bad guys, and he changes he saves the world, and then he deals with these problems. And then after the job is done, he would go back to the telephone box and change back to civilian clothes, and then he needs to come back out and he needs to interact with the world and deal with the problems that were there maybe in step one. You see, there is a transformation. So he goes into the telephone box, becomes Superman, does whatever he needs to do. He comes back out, gets changed again, and become a normal guy. Are you with me? Yeah? Now, you must be wondering, what is Sam on about, talking about Superman? Let's see if you can spot the parallels. Okay. Now, the summary steps for Gersdorff's theorem, maybe I introduce this slide later, but let me, now last week, I think I gave you this page. Oh no, I need to turn that. How do I turn that? Document options. Is that right? Rotate from page 1 to, rotate all of them. Rotate clockwise, yes. Here you go. This thing is not really user-friendly. Now you all have this handout, which I gave to you last time. And what I want to do is to draw your attention to, can you all read that? Focus on the page on the right-hand side. Let's suppose you play a game and you roll a die. So there are 6 possibilities. And if you roll a 1 or a 2, you get $10. And if you roll a 3 or a 4, you're going to lose $3. And if you roll a 5 or a 6, you lose $1. Is everyone okay with that? Very simple, very simple game. And now you can immediately work out what is the expectation of this
which is not zero. So the mean is not zero. It's another way of saying there is some kind of a drift. In fact, if you play this game a million times,
and you don't have to pay any money to play this game. If you play it a million times, how much money do you think you will make? A million times. $2 million, thank you. Yeah, you make $2 million because the expectation per game is 2. Now, that's easy to understand. So that is the mean. And now the author is saying, let's say you want to change the mean from 2 to something else. In fact, he wants to change it from 2 to 1. So you want to change the mean, and then now there's a new variable, z tilde, which is equal to z minus 1. Now you can see that if you do that, then obviously the payoff is reduced by $1 every time, and then your mean is now equal to 1. Now that is what I meant by detrending. And it should be obvious that this works, but this is the kind of the clumsy way to do it. Now there is another way, because as you know, expectation operates on probability multiplied by the payoff. So if you want to change the expectation, of course you can change the payoff, which we just did. And then people hit on the idea, well, how about we change the probability? And that's precisely what we're doing here. Now, this is the same game. Same game. The game hasn't changed. But now we define some new probabilities. Instead of having 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, we define that the probability of getting a 1 or 2 is 122 over 429. Now just bear with me a second. Maybe you're wondering what is going on here. Okay, first of all, you don't have to worry where these numbers came from. And you define the probability of getting a 3 or 4 to be 22 over 39, and the probability of getting a 5 or a 6 to be 5 over 33. Okay, now it's all distorted, it looks like, but you'll see in a moment. Now, when you do that, you can see that if you don't change the payoffs, so 10 minus 3 minus 1, and yet when you plug in these probabilities, you have changed the mean, or you have changed the expectation. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah? Now, if you understand this, ladies and gentlemen, this is the essence of Gersdorff's theorem. And if you go further and calculate the variance of this new measure with these rather weird looking probabilities, or not, these are transform or pseudo probabilities. This is the variance. The whole point is the variance actually hasn't changed. It's 98 over 3. And I think they calculated that earlier in the text, somewhere else, that even with the original variance is 98 over 3. They did that somewhere. Here you go. Okay, so the original variance. So that seems to me like it's a way where you can shift the mean or the expectation of something without changing the shape. And if you can do that, the next step is Well, the whole problem with having a sub-martingale, like I said, is that you have these processes that have a mean of some kind. So now we have found a way to get rid of that without disturbing the variance. So what you can do is, when you see something which has a drift, which has a trend and a variance, what you do is you use the Gersdorff's theorem to get rid of the drift. So now it becomes a pure martingale. You then do whatever you need with using the martingale method to model your stochastic process, and then after you have solved for what you need to solve for, you then change it back to the original, the real probability measure. Are you with me? Is that easy to understand? Yeah. Now, so why did I talk about Superman? Well, look. So I said Superman is normally, you don't see him much, okay? He's just a guy walking around, but when there's a problem, he turns into something else. He would deal with the problems, and then he turns back into the normal guy, and then he's out there. Now, isn't that what Gersdorff is doing? So you have something which is, so you have an expectation, that's the problem to start with, which is non-zero. So you have to deal with that. You assume it is not a martingale. Then you change the probability measure in a way I just described to you. You change the mean, not by detrending it, but by changing the probabilities into something which is a martingale. And then you apply the martingale method, and you calculate the expectation under the new measure, and then you change it back. You know how you got from the new probabilities. You know how you got from the old probabilities to the new probabilities. The reverse also is applicable. So you can go back and forth, in and out like that. And then you have solved the problem. Okay? Now, and some of you are asking me, do you understand this one? The Radon-Nikodym derivative. Okay. This is actually related to the Gersdorff theorem. And allow me to show you. Now, so let's say, what's a good way to describe this? So let's just say you have a normal distribution, and you have a normal distribution which has a mean 0. It's a standard normal distribution, mean 0 and dispersion 1, or standard deviation 1. Now you can, so this is the density function. And so the probability, this is just a standard normal textbook definition of, sorry, there's a minus sign here, a normal distribution. Now, I'm not telling you something you don't know. You should have seen this. This is just a normal distribution. You have seen it 100 times. And now, in this example, so this is continuous. and we are working with just a single random variable. Okay, now let me just define a function on ZT. And I'm going to call it this one. Now just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so there I've now defined a new function. What is that called? Is it epsilon, I think? Okay, so epsilon of ZT. And okay, you might be wondering, what are you trying to do, Sam? I'm trying to explain to you what is the Randon-Nikodym derivative, okay? And it is actually related to the martingale or the Girsanov change of measure. So when you multiply the two together, if you multiply this 1 and 2 together, what you get is something like this. I'm running out of space. Okay. Now, if I call this thing on the left-hand side, I'm going to give it a new name. I'm going to call it P tilde. So I just relabeled it. And if you group the terms carefully on the right-hand side, you can see that it is actually equal to e to the minus a half zt minus mu all square dz. Okay, now you must be wondering, what have you actually done? What I have done, if you look carefully, this is the standard normal with mean 0 and variance 1. Now this one here is the normal, is not the standard, but it's the normal where the mean is mu and the variant is still 1. So what I have done is I've done it, backwards by introducing a standard normal distribution here. Okay, there's nothing to be frightened of. This is the formula for the normal distribution. I multiplied it by a certain function, and you don't have to know why that is the function. But once I multiply it out, I get this equation number 3, and when you rearrange that, you get equation number 4, which is a standard, not standard, a normal distribution, but with mu 1. So you can see that. And if I now just take this term and this term, what I am then saying, simply by definition, I am saying that this one is equal to the original multiplied by a certain function That's all. Now, I haven't done anything tricky. All I'm saying is, look, we start with the standard normal. I multiply it with something, and when I do that and I rearrange, I get something else. But not only that, this is actually also a normal distribution, but with a mean of mu, and the variance doesn't change. I think you kind of can understand what I'm getting at, right? Now, one more step. I'm going to take the epsilon to the other side. So that is equal to dp tilde dp. Is everyone still following me? You still okay with that? Now, you kind of have to think about these concepts back to front. I really mean that. Think of it going this way, and then think of it going coming back. Think of it going in the original direction. I told you I had a standard normal distribution. I simply multiplied by a certain function that I handpicked, epsilon, and I get into a new probability density with a mu, with the mean change, but the variance did not change. I then laid out the relationship between them. It's not a very complicated one. dp tilde is equal to dp times epsilon. I then take the dp, the original one, to the other side at the bottom. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is known as the radon Nikodym derivative. This always, I don't know who these guys are, you can look it up, but they are probably Russian. Always reminds me of, is any one of you into photography? No. Little bit. They sound like camera equipment, because I always think of Nikon. You know Nikon? Nikon is a very famous camera maker. But it's got nothing to do with photography at all. I don't know where these dudes come from. You might want to check it. Now, okay, so what is the point? You're asking me, what is the point, Sam? The point is, if I give you an original, if I give you two density functions, dp, and I give you dp tilde, and somehow you are able to get from one to the other by means of doing this. Now, it may not be possible every time, but if I give you a simple, the original probability density, and then I give you a target. So let's say this is a target, and you can come up with a relationship connecting the two, then you can say that there exists a radon Nikodym derivative, which would allow you to do that transformation. Are you with me? Yeah? Now, why is that related to Girsanov? Because Girsanov is doing exactly that. The Girsanov theorem, or the change of measure I told you earlier, what are they doing here? They are playing around with the probabilities. Can you see that? Yeah? So there is a mapping. So never mind how they go from one to the other. The point is that there is a transformation. So what are the concepts to understand? Well, first of all, the concept of martingale and how it can be complicated when something is either a sub-martingale or a super-martingale. And then how do you deal with that is either by, well, detrending, which is not the elegant way, but the other way is what we call change of measure. Change of measure, applying the Girsanov's theorem, Girsanov's theorem. You change, when we say change of measure, you are changing the probability, the probability density function, change of measure, And if you understand that, then the last one is, in order to do so, so you have the old measure and change of measure. You have the old measure or the old probability distribution. You want to get to the new one. And then, you know what? You want to get back to the old one, don't you? And the radon-nickel-diamond derivative, if there exists a radon-nickel-diamond derivative connecting the two, then you can do this. Are you with me? So radon, just write N, radon N derivative. And the reason it is called a derivative, I mean, anything which has got something over something is always called a derivative. So this is kind of like a relative density function. The relative density function of P tilde with respect to D to P. That's why it's called a derivative. Okay? So you use that, change to the new measure, you do whatever you need to do, and the reverse is also applicable. Is everyone okay now? Yeah? So now even if somebody asks you, do you understand what is Girstoff? You have no fear. Yes, I understand. It is a theorem or it is a technique allowing you to change the mean of a distribution without, and then you can change it to 0, so it becomes a pure martingale, and then you just calculate what you need to calculate, and then you change it back. And then they will ask you the next question, okay, do you understand what is a radon-nickel-diamond derivative? And you can say, yes, I do. It is related to this. The radon-nickel-diamond derivative is actually that function connecting your old measure to your new measure, or your target measure if you want. No one will call it that, but your target measure. So you are switching back and forth between the two of them. Everyone is okay? Yeah? That's good. This is the thing I most wanted to share with you last time and this morning. Okay. Now let me now switch to today. Shut this down. Just shut this down. I want to talk. I think this one I'll talk about next time. I was going to share with you some stuff on barrier options, but I want to tackle and also how to hedge it. What was I saying? Yes, I want to have a quick look. So all this good stuff here, leave it till next time. Today, I really want to have a look at the 2 documents that we uploaded for your project. I don't know if you're aware, but if you go for some of the high-level jobs for derivative desks or quant desks, quite often they will give you a term sheet, something like this, but maybe a little bit better formatted. They will give you a term sheet. Have you had that experience? Have you had that royal treatment yet? No. They give you a term sheet. You sit down, and they give you 10 minutes to read it, and then they come back and they ask you, okay, explain to me what's going on, or try to sell me this product. Okay. But so it is actually good for you, and I have a whole load of term sheets I'm happy to share with you later on if you want to. If you are curious to know more, let me know. It's just good exercise. But here is an example of a term sheet, and so what Keith wants you to do is to basically price this product. And I think this might have come from a real commercial trade. He's wiped out all the names and sensitive information, but the essential stuff is there. Has anyone read this? Your team will come up with a Python code, and then in my in the assignment folder, in the project folder in Blackboard, I said that can you please come up with a few pages of explanation, just a few pages. Don't make it pretty, okay? For your own benefit, you should keep a record of what you've done anyway, or how you think you did it, your methodology and your findings. You can't just give us a code and then here, Sam, that's it. Okay, so show us what you've done. Just a little bit of outline. Don't do like 55 pages. Okay, just write whatever you need. Show us how you tackle the problem or what you have learned and so on. Okay, but this one is an equity link note, and let me see. Now, it's only 2 pages, and these are actually very popular products out there. And I have seen hundreds of examples, and this is one of them. Now, let me just take you through it. But like I said, it is in your interest to try to get as much practice yourself as possible. If you don't understand what I'm about to say, that might be a good thing. Maybe I should go faster. And if you don't understand, you go home. That's even better. Then you go home and you sit down and you get to try yourself to interpret this. Okay. But anyway, what's happened here is, first of all, how long is this trade? It's a 1-year trade. Hypothetically, starting on the 2nd of May, right, which is just 2 weeks from now. So just pretend that it's starting right away, and then it's going to run for 1 year, and the issue amount is 3 million, but whether it's 3 million or 30 million is not essential. Now, what you have actually is a basket of 3 stocks. These are real companies, real stocks. So Tencent, Tower International, and Bank of America with their respective stock codes. So one is a Hong Kong stock, two of them are US. Well, that's interesting. Now there will be an initial price that you have to define. I don't know where Tencent is trading right now. Do you know where Tencent is trading? Just roughly. Has it been doing well? Okay, around 309. So just rough, almost exactly $50 US. Okay. So on your start date, you have to define the initial price, 391. And then the other two, I don't know what they are. Okay. This conversion price, I find it a bit funny because you multiply the initial price by 100%, you get the same thing. So, but anyway, so that's that. And here is the redemption maturity. And now, 1 year from now, 12 months from now, one of two things can happen. Either scenario 1 happens or scenario 2 happens. Okay, so first of all, get that in your mind. One of two things can happen. In scenario 1, if SNL is at or above XNL, then you are going to get this. So I think, okay, I will explain what these things are. So first of all, when you buy this note, you pay par. You pay 100. And, you know, when you are selling these products to a customer, the $1 million question, the first question I always ask, is at maturity, what is the worst case? Or you can ask the question in a different way. At maturity, is this product actually principal protected? If it is, that means the minimum that this investor will get back is $100. So for example, if you buy a US Treasury at maturity, you all know what happens. You get back your principal. Okay, so that's the simplest example I can think of. Likewise for a corporate bond. Now, corporate bond is a little bit different. You got to be careful. Corporate bond looks like it is principal protected, but it isn't, because corporations can default. They can go bankrupt. But fail, in the absence of that, you get your money back. So the first question I always ask is, what is the worst case for this customer? Or you can ask it in the sequence. Question 1, is this product even principal protected? Number 1. Okay. Is it principal protected? As long as the issuer does not go bankrupt. Is it principal protected? If it is not, then what is the worst case? Okay. Is it principal protected? And you can see the answers of these two questions emerging soon. So is it principal protected? And if not, what is the worst case? If not, what is worst case? Because when I see these term sheets, this is kind of my line of thinking. So if ever you are in an interview and then someone puts a term sheet in front of you, give you 10 minutes and say, okay, interpret it for me. When they come back, if I was a candidate, that's what I would say. I would say, first of all, this product is or is not principal protected. And secondly, if it isn't, what is the worst case, etc., etc. Okay, now here, let me explain to you. Actually, regardless of all this stuff here, this product is that simple. So you have 3 stocks, and they start at, I don't know where BOA is trading. $29, and Tao, $29 and around 37. Okay, let's just say 36. Something like that. Now, what you do is, in a year's time, you look at all the prices. So in 12 months, you come back, you look at all the prices. So and you look at the prices. So Tencent might be 452. Tao might be 31. BOA might be 38. Let's just say, who knows? Okay, let's just say they are like that in 12 months' time. This statement, what that means is you take a look at these stocks and you pick out the one which has performed the worst. Now notice on purpose, all of them have gone up here. I did that on purpose. So all of them have gone up, but some of them have gone up more than others. So let's just say this is 37. Okay. So Tencent has rallied massively over 10%, and Tao also. Well, I got Tao and BOA mixed up. Never mind. Okay, Tao also rallied $8, but BOA only went up $2. So I ask you, out of these three, which one performed the worst? Be it Bank of America. Okay, so first of all, first step, you take the three stocks, you look at which one performed the worst. You pick that one. So it is Bank of America. Second question, although Bank of America performed the worst, did Bank of America go up? It did go up. So that would satisfy scenario one. Okay. So all that means is you have a basket here and you are betting that all of them go up, all of them. And you just take the worst one. And then you look at the worst one. Oh, even the worst one went up. Then what would happen now? So BOA went up. So you take BOA, what's the performance? It's not really that good. What's 38 divided by 36? It's roughly 5%. Okay, I don't know what it is. It's 2 divided by 36. It's 2 divided by 36. $5.55. Of course, you got to minus 1. 5.5%. That, ladies and gentlemen, becomes your payoff. So what you're going to get back is $100 times 5.5%. Now, notice there is a participation rate here. Actually, I need to take a step back and actually share with you. The way we price these things is, if you are an investor, you are basically buying an option of some kind and you are selling an option of some kind. And scenario one is the benefit, the payoff that you get from buying an option. You can see that there's a participation rate. Now, scenario two actually is the downside exposure that you get from selling the. Now, let me explain scenario two. Now, scenario two is when you look at the worst performing stock, and the worst performing stock did not go up. So let's say I now change the BOA. So BOA didn't go up, BOA went down to 30. Let's just say 30. Okay, so BOA is still the worst performing stock, but unfortunately now BOA has gone down. So you are not in scenario one anymore. You are now in scenario two. And what you would get then is 100 multiplied by 30 divided by 36. Now I picked 30 on purpose, you'll see in a moment. So what do you get? You're going to lose quite a bit of money because 30 divided by 36 is 83%. Huh? I'm coming to that. Thank you for spotting it. So this is 83, but because there is a floor here, you are not going to lose this amount. So it is floored at 90. It's the max of these two. It's floored at 90. Now, you now tell me, can you now answer questions 1 and question 2? What is the answer to question 1? Is it principal protected? No. PR does not, notice PR only appears in scenario 1. PR isn't here. Yeah, you're nodding your head. So is it principal protected or not? It isn't. Question 2, if not, then what is the worst case? 90. You see? Yeah? You see, these things are not hard. The first one might be a little hard. The second one is a lot easier. The third one is a picnic. Okay. So in a lot of these, and like I said, you know, I've seen thousands of used to deal with these for part of my career. It is usually, I mean, there are, like I said, there are 2 variations. Some are principal protected. Some are not principal protected. When they are not, there can be sometimes a floor, but sometimes the worst case can be 0. Now, the variety that you are seeing actually is this one. Okay? And it is always, instead of just getting a good old-fashioned boring 3% coupon, you are basically, I hate to use the word, but speculating on a massive upside gain in exchange for taking that maximum risk of a 10% loss. So in this example, so if you were in scenario 1, because there's a PR of 154%, you would end up making around 8% if scenario 1 really happened. Whereas in scenario 2, if BOA really dropped to 30, the most that will happen is that you lose $10. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah? So now you can go away and do, you know what Keith said at the end of last year, okay? If you can learn how to price something like this, if you truly understand how to price something like this, you probably can walk into a quant interview, sit down and feel good about yourself. Yeah, but at least you understand the payoff, don't you? Now, yeah. Do you all understand the payoff? Now, one thing I do want to say though is the way these things are constructed quite often is, a client can come to you and say, "Hey, I have this idea in mind, Sam," and then you try and price it, and then what they're doing is they are so the client, from the customer, from the investor's point of view, they are purchasing this option and they are selling this option. And if they give you their money, you also earn some funding on that. So 1 year, if it's 1 year, then you can use, let's say, the 1 year deposit rate, for example, which is around 1%, 1.5%. So you have that funding, and then, well, I should put that down there. The funding, together with the option that they are selling, will together help to finance the option they're trying to buy. Now, the problem is these things are very seldom equal, which is why there is a PR here, there is a participation rate, and this is normally what we actually solve for. This is what we solve for. So if at a PR of 154%, if at that number, at that PR rate, the two are equated, then the customer can pay par. Now, feel free to discuss this further with Keith if you want to. For example, he made this up, I don't know when, but now circumstance has changed, the prices have changed, the volatilities have changed. It could be that if I fix this, there is not enough money. So maybe this option here will cost $5, and then the funding would give me $1.50, and then the option that I sell, $1.50 because it's 1.5%, and then the option that I sell would be, let's say, $2. Let's just say $2. Now, so this is $3.50, but the option that you want to buy is $5. So end up, what you would need to do, you are going to be paying 101.5. You have to pay extra. And this magical number above par, I think as far as this exercise is concerned, is what we would like you to solve for, because the PR is fixed. You know what? So the price of something, the price obviously is a function of all the volatilities, all the starting prices, and the participation rate. So like I said, if you want the price to come out where the options you buy and the options you sell are the same, if you want a par price, then you have to adjust the PR. But now I fixed the PR, so the price is going to change. Are you with me? You can ask Keith, or in fact, you don't even have to ask him. You can just, once you work out this exercise, it will take you 5 minutes to work out if you have a par price, what is the PR? It will take you 5 minutes, honestly. Okay. In fact, you can work out a whole table, a whole matrix of combinations, and not only the one that he's given you. Are you with me? Yeah. It's okay? Have I made it quite clear? Yeah. So you can work on this one. Now, I don't know if he's going to go through it with you in a class. He might. I'll leave it up to him, but he doesn't have to go through structured solution 2. I'll talk about that with you next time, but feel free to read it. Feel free to read that. Feel free to go back and really completely understand structured solution 1. But I think he will talk to you about this performance evaluation for the algo trading. Okay. So your project is either product 1 or product 2 or some kind of algo trading strategy. He said he would talk about this. So, you have any questions? So what we've done today, just to summarize, we started off talking or doing a recap on last week, and we were talking about Markov processes and martingales and Riemann integral, and then I just recapped on the Gersdorff's theorem, and then we discussed and we looked at a paper with a very simple to understand explanation of the idea behind the Gersdorff transformation or change of measure, because an expectation has two things, probabilities and a payoff, and apart from influencing the payoff, so this guy came up with the idea, why not influence the probabilities artificially to turn the expectation into something that you want, and then you calculate, you do your valuation on the derivative, okay, and then you change it back to your original probability measure. And related to that is the radon-nickel-dime derivative, because if I just give you two probability measures, A and B, measure one, or measure A, measure B, you can claim that you can transform the probability measure A into probability measure B if and only if there is a function that can connect the two like this. And this function, ladies and gentlemen, is known as the radon-nickel-dime derivative. Okay? And after that, we had a look at one of the structured solutions, which was this one. So now, by now, you should be able to understand this one, which is a basket of 3 stocks. I leave a question for you to think about. So you've got a basket of 3 stocks. Now, first of all, it doesn't have to be 3. It can be 30. Okay? Now, question 1 to you, and then we can talk about this next time. Question 1 to you is, if this is not a basket of 3 stocks, let's say this is a basket of 8 stocks. Okay? If I am the investor, do I want a better deal or not? Do I want enough, for example, do I want a higher participation rate? That's one way to put it. If this has got 8 stocks instead of 3, or 25 stocks, whatever, do I want a higher participation? Actually, you can tell me. Someone is already, why?
Because you have more opportunity to
because your risk is now quite diversified. Okay. Good. Okay. Let's not wait until 2 weeks. Okay. Let's talk about this question. You're right. You're absolutely right. You can think intuitively. The more stocks you have, the worse it gets. That's question 1. Now, question 2 is related. Question 2 is, if I give you 2 baskets and they have the same number of stocks, but they are different stocks. Basket 1, the stocks are highly correlated. Basket 2, the stocks are not highly correlated. In fact, they might even be uncorrelated or negatively correlated. Which basket will require a higher? Which basket? Okay, how am I going to frame the question? You know my question, right? Huh? Which basket requires a higher return or higher participation rate? The uncorrelated or the poorly correlated or maybe even negatively correlated. If it is negatively correlated, things are going to go like this. So you are almost certain to step on the dog shit, right? That's one way of putting it. Well, I'm on record. You know what I'm saying, right? So these trades, to a great extent, actually are correlation trades. Correlation trades. You mean you are the investor. You go in. Someone presented you a basket, and you are very comfortable, thinking that because the stocks are highly correlated, oh, they're all just going to go one way. And then it turns out they start getting decorrelated. So it's a correlation. In fact, are you long correlation or short correlation? In other words, if you buy a basket like this, if you are the investor, do you want to see correlation go up or do you want to see correlation go down? You want to, okay, so you're right. You are long correlation if you do a trade like that. When you are long something, it means you want that something to go up. So if it goes down, there's a disaster for you. Okay, so you can, like I said, going back to the job interview scenario, if you say this is a principal protected trade, not principal protected trade, worst case scenario 90% is a stock basket where you pick the worst one, and if the worst stock is still positive, you get that payoff times the participation rate. But if the worst stock is negative, you just get that performance floored at 90, and you conclude by saying, I am long correlation doing this trade. Boom, 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 boom. You're done. Okay, I think they will be quite impressed. Yes? I'm not sure I understand. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
By buying this strategy, you can move away from the negative return. So the whole correlation will become higher or more positive.
I think I see what you're saying. So you are saying that if you are an investor, you may have a core portfolio somewhere else where you are very well diversified. But if you also buy a product like this, you don't mind if things are very, very highly correlated and the two are kind of offsetting each other. Is that what you mean? Yeah, you could say, yeah, in a way you could say that. Yeah, it's good. It's a good point. Good thinking. The thing that is going through traders' minds all the time when they are trading stuff like that is just which direction of the correlation they're in, whether they are long correlation or short correlation. Remember that I told you before that option volatility is one of those rare, financial parameters which are truly predicting the future. There's no other I can think of. Actually, there is another one, which is correlation. The problem is correlation is not as widely tradable as option volatility. But correlation is the market trying to predict what might happen, at some point in the future. And even traders don't know. Nobody knows. Okay. Well, thank you for coming, and I appreciate your attendance. And I will make, like I said, I will make this available to everybody. And start thinking about your topic. And next time we'll talk about maybe structured solution 2 and other things. Okay? Thanks, guys. I'm not going to take attendance today. By the way, so next time we meet will be 2 weeks from now, but you are seeing Keith tomorrow. Okay? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Hey. Yeah.
Lower, so we expect lower return if we are not taking the risk.
part of your statement is true, part of it is not. It is true that the return will be less. The return is less because the risk is less. But whenever you are dealing with a basket, you are almost always dealing with correlation. Yeah, you are.
So if the
Yeah.
two baskets have the same price,
Yeah.
normally I will choose the more diversified one because it has a lower risk.
For this,
Not not picking the ones, just the profit rate based on just the weight of just the stocks.
the average.
Oh
You are asking me about an average basket. You know, if you can price this, you can change it into a product like that very, very quickly, very easily. Um, no, but if you have the average return of a basket, that is not so different from just an index. That's what an index is. Yeah, isn't it? That's just an index.
If I have two baskets to choose and with the same price, I always choose the uncorrelated one, more uncorrelated one because it has the lower risk, but the price is the same.
Yes, but not for this one. But not for this one.
Because